This is the TREKOLOGY ULR7 sleeping pad. It weighs 2 pounds. I'm super excited to review this because I've been a big fan of the UL80 ever since it came out. And Dose of Dirt did a video on it and named it the reigning champion of budget sleeping bags. And I went out and bought 4 of them. That's what my family uses as our go-to for camping. So this thing is cheap, it is comfortable, I don't mind handing it to the kids, and it's okay if it gets messed up. But it's not insulated. That's like the big downside. It's cold for winter camping. We have done winter camping in it, but it's I put like a electric heating blanket on top to overcome that big challenge. This, however, is insulated to the teeth, R7. So it's got double insulation. Even I've got some nicer pads that are $200 pads, and they're more like R4, 4.5. So R7 with a price tag of $53, which is a quarter what those other bags, pads cost. So let's see if it's just as comfortable and durable as its predecessor. Alright, comes with a repair patch. Material is nylon. Just like most of these sleeping pads are, it uses that double inflation valve, which also a lot of pads use. I've got that figured out pretty well. The only downside, like the thing I don't like about this, is that you can't do like fine little micro adjustments by poking at it to trip that umbrella valve. Although, as we'll see once I get this inflated, it doesn't really need that as much as some other pads do. Let's get it inflated. Alright, there it is. Thankfully they've not gone the route of a self-inflating pad. Some of the pads in this price range have the foot pump in the bottom, and I've never really had good luck with those. They seem like they're bulky and heavy and hard to use. Just under 24 inches. That's why most of the big brands don't use very many self-inflating pads. And this one hasn't either, they've just kept it simple. And the length, 71. Almost 24 by 70s and a bit. Exactly 3.5 inches thick. So that is dimensions, and just for comparison, if you're familiar with the UL80, there they are next to each other. The R7 is a little bit wider and a little bit shorter. So just for comparison. So just a little bit wider, and maybe 2 or 3 inches shorter, so about the same. Now the big difference is this does like the horizontal baffles, and that is this more dimpled or quilted baffle design, but it still has, now it's hard to see on camera, a little bit of a rail, a little bit of a curve, just like the UL80 had. I would say it has a fairly different feel to it, though. The dimpled baffles make it feel a lot more pliable, like a lot softer, like a regular mattress. So I definitely prefer that design. I've got a couple sleeping pads, kind of lighter weight, 1.5 inch sleeping pads that use that design, and I find it to be very comfortable. Yeah, usually with other sleeping pads I've found, I'll fold them in half, and like that's way overinflated, and I'll let enough air out of it until it can sit flat just under gravity. But this one, I have to inflate it all the way and then blow a couple extra breaths in it to almost overinflate it, and then it's perfect. So I'm kind of wondering if people start reviewing it and complain about it kind of collapsing or not provided enough support, just because yeah, if you don't put enough air in it, then your hip might bottom out. But I think if you inflate a pad just enough that your hip is just, you know, a centimeter or so from the ground, that's perfect. Then you're maximizing how much how much it's going to conform to your body before you hit the ground. Let's try it out. Yeah, it's almost strange to not have to let half the air out, because that's perfect as is. If you sit on it or even raise your head up, then my hip will hit the ground through it. But that's exactly what you want. You want it to kind of have as much give as possible without actually hitting the ground, and that way it'll spread your body weight out instead of getting those pressure points at your hip and shoulder. All right. I would say comfort overall is excellent. I've tried a lot of different sleeping pads, and this is probably, I don't know, top 3 or 4, next to some much more expensive sleeping pads, and honestly that one. So it's got a $40 and $50-something sleeping pads that are sort of punching way above their weight class. And this one's insulated, so that's what's really got me impressed. Like, you can find comfortable sleeping pads for 40 or 50 bucks, but they're almost never insulated. So, and this one's not just insulated, it's got an R value of 7.2. So that is huge. And I don't know if it's like independently certified, but I do know when you pull this out, you can see the double layer. So there's the first layer of foil, and I can just barely see it. The clear there is not the other side. That's the layer of TPU kind of sandwiched in between, and then the second layer of foil beyond that. So there is not just one, but 2 layers of that reflective insulation inside. So I think an R value of 7.2 is totally plausible. Let's see, things I don't like. So one is it would have been so nice if they had just cut like a little notch out of the insulation here, because as you try to deflate it, that triple layer of insulation seals right up against the valve. So as you deflate it, you got to like constantly come down here and be poking at this to try to unclog the valve. I would almost be tempted to take some scissors to it, but if you start a tear, it probably would propagate through the whole thing, so I'll leave it alone. But yeah, it's a nuisance to deflate. Oh, I don't know if this is a downside. It's just a bit of inconsistent information. So the very tiny instructions say that the weight limit is 300 pounds. Oh man, I don't know if I can get it to focus, and it's really small, but that's what it says right there. So, and the listing says 330 pounds, just a minor difference there, just in case it matters. And the only other potential con, if you're sensitive to weight, is, yeah, it's 2 pounds. So if you're going on long backpacking trips, you might prefer to have a lighter weight, kind of 1 pound sleeping pad. So it's not heavy, it's just, yeah, if you're doing ultralight backpacking, it's probably a little too heavy for that. That is the ULR7 sleeping pad by TREKOLOGY. There aren't a whole lot of sleeping pads that are this inexpensive and that are insulated, much less are 7.2 insulated. You can find $20, $30, $40 sleeping pads, but they're always 1.6 for the R value. So yeah, that feels like a lot of value for the money. I'm super happy to have basically an insulated version of the UL80 that is even more comfortable. It's got the same valve that I like. It's the 40D nylon. They didn't cheap out anywhere. If there's any catch, maybe the weight. It's a little bit heavier, but other than that, that's going to be our new favorite for family camping trips.